What happens when two influential leaders meet behind closed doors? One, a rising African president fighting for his nation's sovereignty, the other, a former U.S. president carrying the weight of his past decisions. This is the untold story of a secret meeting that could reshape the future of Africa. It was a quiet afternoon in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, when President Ibrahim Traoré received an unexpected letter. Delivered by a diplomatic envoy, the message was sealed and brief, but carried weight. Former U.S. President Barack Obama had requested a private meeting, away from public eyes and the press. The invitation puzzled Ibrahim. Though he had heard distant rumors that Obama respected his leadership, the timing and secrecy of the message raised questions. Why now? And what did Obama hope to discuss in private? Since taking office, President Traoré had made global headlines. His strong stance against Western influence, push for national independence, and alignment with controversial nations had made him a subject of praise in Africa and criticism in the West. Yet this request from Obama wasn't about politics, as usual. It hinted at something deeper. After careful thought, Ibrahim agreed. The meeting was set to take place in a heavily guarded government facility, far from the city's center. Only his most trusted advisors were informed, and even they didn't know the full details. That evening, as security forces ensured the area was secure, Ibrahim arrived at the compound. Inside, the atmosphere was tense and still. He entered the room where Barack Obama waited with a measured smile. Their handshake was firm. Obama's expression carried both warmth and something else. Perhaps reflection, perhaps regret. "Thank you for meeting me, President Traoré," Obama began, his tone sincere. "I know this is unusual, but I've followed your leadership closely. The courage you've shown in reclaiming your nation's voice is something the world should recognize. I wanted to speak with you directly, off the record, without filters, without judgment." Ibrahim nodded, silent, observing the former president. This was not the typical diplomatic exchange. Something personal was coming. Obama took a deep breath and continued. "There are things I've wanted to say, things I've carried with me since I left office, and I believe you're someone who deserves to hear them." For a moment, both men sat in thoughtful silence. The air felt heavy with significance. Then Obama spoke again. "I've admired your bravery, Ibrahim. What you're doing in Burkina Faso is more than national leadership. It's symbolic. You're standing for an Africa that refuses to be controlled, an Africa that demands respect." Ibrahim remained quiet, but his eyes showed attentiveness. He had heard enough Western leaders criticize him. Obama's words were unexpected, a rare moment of recognition. Then came the unexpected turn. "I have regrets," Obama said quietly, looking down. "Not everything we did while I was in office helped the people we said we stood for. I believed in diplomacy, but I now see that diplomacy without listening can be just another form of control. We overlooked Africa's voice too often. I overlooked voices like yours." Ibrahim listened, intrigued. This was more than a meeting. It was a reckoning. Obama looked him in the eye. "Your fight, Ibrahim, is one I now understand more deeply. I may no longer hold power, but I wanted to tell you this in person. The world is watching, and so am I, not as a politician, but as a man who sees the tides turning." The two men sat in silence once more, this time not from tension, but from mutual understanding. The conversation had only just begun, but something powerful had already happened. A former global leader had acknowledged a rising one, not with orders or conditions, but with truth. "When I was in office, I didn't do enough for Africa. I didn't support leaders like you the way I should have." Barack Obama's voice carried both regret and resolve as he sat across from President Ibrahim Traoré in a private meeting far from the cameras and headlines. The former U.S. president, once hailed as a symbol of hope for many in Africa, now admitted his deepest regrets, not just as a man, but as a former leader of the most powerful nation on earth. We always talked about Africa's potential. Obama continued, but when the moment came to truly empower African nations, to give them the space and respect to lead their own way, I stayed silent. I didn't take the risks that mattered most. President Ibrahim listened silently. The room was still, yet the air was heavy with meaning. It was rare, almost unheard of, for a Western leader to speak so openly and humbly about the failures of their own policies toward Africa. For Ibrahim, who had faced endless criticism and pressure from global powers for asserting his country's independence, this moment felt both surreal and significant. "I should have done more," Obama said, firmly. "I should have stood behind leaders like you who had the courage to rise even when the world tried to push you down. Instead, I let the old system continue. I'm sorry." Ibrahim breathed deeply. He had once admired Obama from afar, seeing him as a beacon of hope. But hearing this confession gave him a different perspective, more complex, more grounded. This wasn't just about Obama's personal failings. It was about centuries of Western interference, about systems built to dominate and extract, not uplift. "I appreciate your words, Mr. Obama," Ibrahim finally replied. His tone was calm but resolute. "But Africa's fight isn't about apologies. It's about liberation. We've been seen as a continent to control for far too long. That time must come to an end." Obama nodded solemnly. "That's exactly why I asked to meet with you. I see what you're doing in Burkina Faso. You're not asking for permission. You're reclaiming your sovereignty. That's leadership. That's power." The silence returned briefly, this time filled with mutual understanding. Ibrahim had long believed in Africa's capacity to rise, but now it was clearer than ever. This awakening would only become real when African leaders believed in their own strength more than the West's approval. "I'm not here to look back," Ibrahim said firmly. "I'm focused on what comes next. Africa will define its own path. We will build our own future, on our terms, with our values, not the ones handed down to us." Obama's expression softened into a quiet smile. His eyes showed something rare, humility. "I agree," he said. "The future of Africa is not in the West's hands. It's in yours. You're showing the world that Africa doesn't need saving. It needs space to thrive." The conversation turned to broader issues: African unity, economic justice, global perceptions, and the need for internal reform. Obama shared insights from his post-presidency reflections, acknowledging the flaws in the global system and how Africa had been sidelined for generations. Ibrahim listened, challenged, and responded. But in his mind, one truth echoed: Africa would only rise when it stopped looking at itself through foreign eyes. It had to see its own worth, its own greatness. As the meeting drew to a close, Ibrahim looked Obama in the eye and said, "I hope, Mr. Obama, that the lessons of the past help guide us to build something greater. But it must be Africa leading the way. We won't wait anymore. We will rise, and we will do it ourselves." Obama stood, extended his hand, a gesture not of power but of respect. Ibrahim rose and took it. "I believe you will," Obama said. "And wherever I can, I'll support you." As they parted, the conversation left a lasting weight. It wasn't just a meeting, it was a moment, a turning point. Ibrahim knew the journey ahead would still be long and difficult, but the silence Africa once endured was giving way to something new. Voices of pride, of courage, of sovereignty. Africa was awakening, and it would not be silenced again.